Hello, how's my audio?
Top story live from Paris, live in Tel Aviv.
We are here in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Every weeknight, it's your news playlist. Top Story with Tom Llamas, streaming weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now.
We're back with tonight's debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
When it ends in just a few minutes, join us for an analysis of tonight's key moments. Our team will break down how it could shake up the final sprint to Election Day. For now, though, let's go back to the debate live in Philadelphia.
Live from the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back to this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him?
I agree.
Why? For what reason? He hasn't
Trump
even
is
made
more
a
respected.
phone call in 2 years to Putin. Hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left, I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
threw him out of
Barely
a
can
campaign
walk.
like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives
Save us,
being
Trump.
destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also, as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different
Oh
from
my
what we're seeing
God.
from President Biden?
Here we go.
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president.
If a woman runs America, it's totally cooked.
You're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself.
American intelligence. Like we got it.
Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous
Oh my God, the
defense.
hypocrisy.
And
Oh my
because
God.
of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in
Question, ma'am. What the hell are we doing there in Ukraine? What's the point? Huh? Defend itself.
Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you
You're there unless there's something benefit for you.
tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania?
You don't care about Ukraine. Nobody here cares about Ukraine. You got something for you in it. That's why you guys are in there.
How quickly you would give up.
Trying to westernize Ukraine. Yo, Ukraine is for Putin, okay? It's his. Leave him alone.
For the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Trump versus ABC versus liberalism. He's literally fighting liberal people and freaking brainwashed people.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please.
True.
He would have been
Shut up.
sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening. But he does have that, something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion,
Oh, yeah.
I think he's the
I
worst
agree.
president in the history of our country.
100%.
She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said
Like, I don't know what the hell Kamala Harris is gonna do. She's already in office. Like, I don't know what the hell she's gonna do. Like, you're trying to fix things. You're in office. You're supposed to be done. Like, if people vote for you, I'm sorry, but people are stupid if they vote for you. She's already in office. Like, what the hell is America gonna change? Like, there's nothing's gonna change. It's gonna be the same thing. So, hopefully, even though both sides are like, there's lies both sides, but I feel like Trump is more, like, he got more, like, he's more, like, a little bit more honest than her. You know, everything she says is bullshit. But Trump, there's bullshit, not bullshit. You get me?
she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one.
You too, okay? You lie too. All American politicians lie, okay?
When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is Commander-in-Chief, and the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker.
Okay.
Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be Commander-in-Chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, 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 and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal and, in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, "I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black." I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care.
Are you serious? You think you're black to gain votes? Oh my God, this country is a joke.
You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone
better than you, that you're already in office, okay?
Who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty.
Okay.
And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled not guilty.
Do it?
But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago.
Okay, let me know.
Because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman.
Seriously.
She is Biden. The
100%.
worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up,
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country, one who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the...
I have plans. $10,000, $50,000, $6,000. Bro, what the hell? You're going to help the economy with $50,000 and $6,000?
First year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you.
Trying to throw Biden under the bus. Democrats are pathetic.
Let's turn to policy.
President Trump, we have to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy, please.
She has a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she has
we do
a
have to
plan
move on
to
to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay,
that's what her plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsey,
to
go ahead.
respond because
Trump,
the
President
former
Trump,
president has said
no,
something twice that I need to respond
No,
to.
I'm sorry. We're going to move on, Vice President Harris. President Trump, this is now your third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Correct. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it, and we're going to replace it. But remember this. I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not-too-distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run health care system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president, and we, over the last 4 years, have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed, for the first time, Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it,
Vice President Harris,
in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot of...
You made a mistake. At number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to give. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you.
Every 4 years, they come up with this bullshit. Every 4 years. Oh, what are you going to do? Literally, we're just getting worse every 4 years. Like, every time they come up with this situation, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do to help? Same bullshit. Every president, same bullshit. So nothing's really... if people believe this, I think you guys just need help. All the time. Like, every time, new election. Oh, what are you going to do with the climate? What are you going to do with this? Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Even Trump or Democrat, Republicans, same bullshit.
For you each.
Well, the former president had said the climate change is a hoax. And what we know is...
So what's going to happen right now? Just both are going to talk bullshit. I'm sorry. Even Trump.
That it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as Vice President, over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
True. Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Like, I don't even know why America just so supportive to Ukraine and Israel. I really don't know why, man. I really don't. Like, what's I don't know, man. America's just a joke. I don't know why America's doing this, man. I just hope Trump wins. I really do. Because I swear, if Kamala Harris becomes president, I think America's not gonna be here. I feel like the world is gonna be different. Yeah, we need a Trump. Both presidents are horrible, but I think Trump is a better option for America. As an American talking, you know, I think he cares about America more than anything else. Truly, he cares about okay, so we can react to Redacted. I prefer doing that. Reacting to Redacted is way better than watching on YouTube. So yeah, I follow these people. They just talk about straight up facts. And Jackson Hinkle, they banned him from YouTube. They banned him from all these platforms right here. See, damn, this guy has 1 million views. Okay, where's Redacted? Okay, Redacted. Okay, I'm just gonna have to search them up. Redacted. Oh my god. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so I hope Trump wins.
Well, on that, and pressing back on her on that question
on
about
anything. And the thing is, it's like they're not asking any substantive questions. They're just asking things that they are allowed to ask. It's like, okay, you can't ask about this, you can't ask about that, you can't bring up the drug thing because of the pharmaceutical industry, because this is brought to you by Pfizer, right? I'm surprised that they're not before every question. Okay, this question is brought to you by, Pfizer.
Moderna. Yeah. Our climate question is brought to you by, who knows? Microsoft.
Mobil, Exxon, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just so, like, these are not the questions. Like, it's pandering to a specific amount of people, sure, but like, these aren't the questions we want to know. You know, we're not getting anything about policy. We're not getting any answers on anything. It's just a lot of platitudes and attacks, and this one's lying and that one's lying.
See?
It's like,
I would have appreciated if it was just 45 minutes of one of them talking, 45 minutes of the other talking, and call it a night. Because that's all it is. It's just split up.
Yeah.
You know,
Facts and common sense. It's disgusting. Exactly. Thank you guys, though, for subscribing and being part of our channel here. This is a special edition tonight. Normally, we're live at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, covering the stories the mainstream media ignores. But yes, there's a commercial break right now, and then they're going to come back with their closing statements. I think Kamala, I'm no fan of her at all. I think she's a disaster, but I think she is doing exactly what she needs to do. And let's listen into her closing statements right now.
I believe in what we can do together. That is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now.
Please.
Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years
cue the violin music.
Back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump.
It's almost like
so she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years.
Boom.
They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David
Muir. You think that changed any minds?
No.
How many of you, I see so many people saying nothing changed at all. You know, I think, well, let's just talk about who this debate was for. It was for swing voters, right? It was for swing voters, and you're in the state of Pennsylvania, which of course is a famous swing state, traditionally blue Philadelphia, and then of course traditionally blue Pittsburgh, and then I'm from Pennsylvania, we get to say this, you have in the center of the state, you have Pennsyltucky, right? And you have, to me, then you have the salt of the earth, like the hardworking Pennsylvanians who live in the rest of the state. And so this is for the swing voters who are going to be affected by fracking. What's going to happen in the Rust Belt, down through West Virginia and in Virginia, and then down into Kentucky and Ohio. And the blue-collar workers, like the John Deere factory that's now going out of business and moving to Mexico, and these other
John Deere's
Caterpillar in Indiana.
Wow.
So, yeah, exactly. So Caterpillar. So this debate was not for people who have had their minds made up for many, many months. This debate, of course, was for the swing voters, for people who might be undecided. There are 100 million Americans who don't vote, and I see people in the comments saying, so what we learned about this is you have both of these people are pro-Israel.
Yeah.
That they're going to continue with these policies of war and expanding the military and NATO expansion. Maybe the only difference on war front is that Kamala Harris is definitely wants to go to war with Russia.
Yeah,
she actively wants to go to war with Russia and
Iran.
NATO.
I mean, they've been very harsh on Iran.
Yeah. So I think this, I don't know if it swayed anybody on this front. We'll ask you guys in the comments. Do you think that this swayed you one way or the other? Were any of you guys watching right now on the fence about either of these candidates, voting or not voting? Maybe you're one of the 100 million who doesn't vote and doesn't think that these parties speak for you at all. The uniparty, right?
Yeah. Well, and I'll say this, I was actually impressed with Trump tonight. That's not me, Philip. He did it again. I was actually impressed with his performance because I make it clear that I'm not a huge Trump fan, right? But I feel like he was asking the questions. He wasn't all over the place like he usually is as much. I mean, he still kind of was.
Well, that's kind of funny because that's like. Oh, sorry. I'll make my point. Finish your point.
Oh, I was just to say, I just feel like the moderators. Like you said, this was Kamala Harris, the moderators versus Trump.
Right.
That's what I felt. I felt like he did a good job thwarting that. Not taking it to just answering the questions better than I thought he was going to.
Go ahead, Philip.
Even though they were aimed at him.
Yeah, I felt the exact opposite. I felt like he didn't answer a single question, and that was starting to frustrate the piss out of me because I want to hear people's policies, and I feel like every question he was asked, he just answered something completely different, just like the thing he wanted to say. And
yeah, so I agree. I agree he didn't specifically answer the question, but the thing is he did because they weren't asking the right questions. He was filling the holes with things that mattered to people, is what I'm saying.
Right. Let's talk about some of the questions. Right. Just off the top of my head, David Muir asked him, you basically incited January 6th. You incited what happened at the Capitol and made your marchers march to the Capitol, and then attacked officers. So that's the question, right? That's the question to Trump. And then Trump, he has to then go on the defensive and answer it that way, right? No, that's not what happened, and he has to go on the defensive. But I agree with you, Philip, in part. There was parts of where I wanted him to answer the question that David Muir directly asked him about how are you going to actually deport all of these millions of illegal immigrants, and he turned it right around and pointed at the Kamala and has let in millions of illegal immigrants, but he never answered the question on the roundup force. And I would love to see them talk about that because to me, that's a very important question that he didn't answer. How are you going to get ICE agents, local law enforcement, National Guard, and how are you going to organize this? And are you going to have Tom Holland, who was in charge of ICE before? This is a massive military operation. Colonel Douglas McGregor on our show said, that's a massive military operation. In order to pull this off, how are you going to do it? And Colonel McGregor said, I hope you have competent people around you to carry out this massive military operation. It's like a D-Day landing.
Yeah.
You're going to have to deal with a mean liberal media, which is going to come after you, calling you the deportation in chief, whatever. And you're also going to have to carry out this massive military operation, like landing on the beaches of Normandy to pull this thing off. How are you going to do it? It's a great question.
Yeah, and think about the disservice that these so-called journalists that did this debate, if these people weren't trying to get access and actually would ask a question, and then if Trump or Kamala doesn't answer it or they throw out some unfactual thing, they ask them again, they hold their feet to the fire, they make sure they answer the question before they move on and also make the question substantive, like the January 6th, telling the truth, all this other stuff. Like this is just it's just things that don't matter to people. There's a small base of activists that care about the January 6th stuff, and I know that some people do care about it, but that's not what's affecting them on a daily basis. That happened how long ago?
Yeah,
they're affected by the economy. They're affected by the things that are going on in their lives right now, and they're not asking a single thing about that.
Or climate.
Climate.
Right. That really pissed me
climate
off
change.
When they're asked specifically about the war in Israel and the war in Ukraine. And it's like, Kamala was like, we're all good friends. That's how we're going to deal with it. And Trump was like, it never would have happened. And like, neither one of them addressed, what are you going to do about it? Because it is going on. It is there. It doesn't matter, like friends or what, like, how are we, what's the end goal?
How are you going to end this immediately? You know, how are you going to put an end to this immediately? Well, on day one, I'm going to get in there and we're going to end this. We're going to end this because, people are dying. Great.
I mean, I think Trump did make one statement that is most likely true, is that Gaza will be completely wiped off the face of the earth.
Oh, for sure. That will happen. Yeah. Gaza will not exist. And that's been the plan all along.
Yeah, that was where she brought up
that.
the two-state solution. She brought up the two-state solution. I was like, I think we're well past that.
Right. The plan all
two
along.
States for that to happen. Yeah.
Right. I mean, the plan all along since the 1940s has for that to have been the case. And then you're seeing that all coming to fruition now. And of course, as the United States has already talked about, partnering with Israel in order to, extract natural gas and all of the resources that are off the coast there. So it's all
the
about
beachfront properties, the real estate agents that are going to be going in there.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about the money, of course. Yeah. We know that. But also Ukraine, right? It's all about the money and BlackRock and Vanguard owning those minerals. And how can the United States profit from that? And certainly the Biden administration has in Hunter Biden in that deeply corrupt situation.
Damn.
How do you stop it? How do you put an end to it? Just by being president? You're going to pick up the phone and tell President Putin to knock it off? I don't think that's going to happen. Putin's been burned so many times by so many U.S. presidents that he's done.
Right.
Like he's like,
I'm going to throw more sanctions. Throw more sanctions on him. Yeah. Like, you know what?
Like,
that's not exactly working.
Yeah. You know what? You guys just sanction everything. Just do it. It hasn't done anything. But the thing is, and they didn't address something that I think is important too, is BRICS. It's like, because of our dollar, weaponization of the dollar, because of what we've done over there, because of the sanctions we put on all these different places, the BRICS nations are forming, and that's like a big threat to us. And they act like it's not even, like it doesn't matter. They didn't talk about the dollar at all.
At all. The U.S. dollar. So in about, what is today? Today's the 11th, right? Yeah. Today's the 10th. Excuse me. Tomorrow, September 11th, 7 days until the U.S. dollar effectively will change forever, in my opinion, because that's when the Fed will slash interest rates. That's when the Fed will start this era of slashing, as they have talked about. An era of rate cuts is coming. We could see 4 this year, which is an admission by the Fed that the U.S. dollar is in real trouble. And it's going to be in real trouble because it's going to devalue the U.S. currency. And you're going to have there's $6.2 trillion right now in money market accounts. What that's going to do to the U.S. dollar once those rate cuts happen is people are going to dump the U.S. dollar. It's going to be flooding out of money market accounts, and it's going to hit the U.S. economy. And there's going to be more dollars flowing through the United States economy, therefore inflating the inflationary problem that we already have in the United States and further devaluing the currency. And you have these BRICS nations coming together. You had Turkey last week saying that they're ascending to membership in BRICS.
And they're NATO.
They're a NATO country.
Yeah.
A NATO country is now joining BRICS.
That's crazy.
That's on top of Iran. That's on top of the United Arab Emirates, with the crown jewel of Dubai sitting in the BRICS, in the
China?
BRICS, China, Russia, India, South Africa, and on and on and on.
Well, they've got like 119 other nations that want to join. They're not going to bring them in just yet,
Well, yeah,
but that's.
You get Venezuela involved, and you have OPEC is basically there. Venezuela and I think Nigeria are the only ones not there.
Yeah. It is a disaster for the United States dollar, and it is a disaster for the United States hegemony around the world, which has been supported by military might. The use of a United States aircraft carrier to solidify trade routes and so forth. That was the agreement after the Bretton Woods Accords, right? You use the United States dollar, the petrodollar, and we will provide support and safety for trade. We'll make sure no pirates get to you. And now, of course, we can't even supply that because Houthi rebels can fire, homemade grenades and take out trade and shipping. We can't even provide that safety and security in the seas anymore. So there's a lot of countries right now saying we're done with the U.S. dollar. We want to diversify away from that. We don't want to rely on the International Monetary Fund or the World Bank that's run by the United States. We're sick of it. We want our own. If we want to invest and build a building project, we're going to do it through BRICS financing. We're going to do it through alternative currency sources.
Currencies that have value.
Right.
Because
by gold, silver,
look at how
forth.
fast from, like the 1970s when the dollar was basically flourishing until just like 10 years ago, we didn't have BRICS as a threat. We still had like the oil was holding up the dollar and things like that. But now look at how much it's depreciated in that time.
Right.
Like how much less it's worth. Now they've got BRICS as a threat. We're losing the petrodollar. Think how fast it's going to depreciate now.
Well, yeah, and of course, with additional rate cuts and admission by the Fed that we are, heading to a bear market for the U.S. dollar. So over the next, we go through these 8-year cycles of the U.S. dollar is now the buying power is going down. So yeah, that didn't come up tonight. Anyway, I think it's really interesting to look at what has happened here with this debate with these candidates right now, and you see these polls, which I don't believe these polls really to save my life. I think they're terrible. They show the Real Clear Politics poll out today. The Real Clear average poll from RealClearPolitics.com right now has Harris up by 1 point. Conglomeration of all of the polling right now, Harris is winning by 1 point. Do you guys buy that? Do you believe that? The top battlegrounds right now has Trump up by 3.8 points.
I am on
versus 2020. And there's a lot of toss-up votes still to be had.
Well, I got a question for the chat. For everybody that's watching right now in the chat, have you ever been polled? Like, who's been polled? Because
that's a personal question.
But I'm always like, I think polls. I think polls are one of the easiest things to manipulate and easiest things to use as propaganda because they can pretty much say whatever they want. They don't really ever show who they're polling. How many people? I mean, some of them do, but they don't show who. They don't tell the questions they're asking. They don't are you just doing Republicans, Democrats, Independent, like whatever. Okay. They don't always state